Hi, this is Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 17 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. Now, the angle is a little different today because I'm going to talk about one of my other machines, not my Amiga 4000 that's over there, not my Amiga 500, not my Amiga 1200 over there, but my Amiga 3000. Now, this was the first big box Amiga I ever got back in, I'd say 1991. Yeah, I'd say 1991. Saved up my money working at a camera store, paid for the little guy, and it was expensive, believe me, but I loved it. I loved the small case design. I absolutely loved the performance of it, the fact that it's a 32-bit data path on there, and I had 4 megs of fast RAM and 2 megs of chip RAM and OS 2.04. That thing was a beast, and I used it as my primary computer probably until 1994, 1995, when I started getting into PCs as a career, so I ended up getting a PC. My Amiga 3000 continued to work until probably 96, and then it quit. My Amiga 3000 gave up the ghost, died. I tried and tried to breathe life into it. I'd get yellow screens, I'd get gray screens, I'd get black screens, but I'd never get a kickstart screen. So it went on the shelf, and it stayed on the shelf for, almost a decade. Now in the probably 2004, 2003, 2004, I got a hold of a really nice Amiga 3000 right here in a towerized case. This guy had, at the time, a warp engine in it that, as you know, is now in my Amiga 4000. But it also had a really nice Retina card in it, and it had the 8516 sound card in it, which again is in my 4000 now, and I absolutely love that little guy. This Amiga worked fantastic. This Amiga 3000, absolutely fantastic. Nice SCSI hard drive. I think it's a 6 gig. Maybe a 4, but I think it's a 6 gig SCSI hard drive. Nice SCSI CD-ROM drive, worked perfect, but it's a monstrosity. It is an absolute gigantic beast. Now, this was something that people sometimes liked to do back in the 90s. Towerize their Amigas, put their Amiga 1200 into a big, bulky, giant, yuck. I don't even like tower PCs, and I'm in the industry, and I like a nice, small, sleek, enough so you can expand it, but not enough where it drives you crazy with its size. So what I'm going to do is this. That, my friends, is my original Amiga 3000 desktop case. And sitting on top of it is my little ROM tower, which I don't need anymore. But that's the original desktop case. Still has my, excuse me, chair, my original A3000 motherboard in it that's not doing a thing as of right now, not operating at all. And I'm going to transplant this beautiful motherboard in this absolute monstrosity of a beast case into there. Here she is, opened up. This is, again, the original motherboard from my original Amiga 3000 system. It's got some 2.04 ROMs in there, and it's got some of the older chips. There's our, come on, focus, you silly little guy. Our chips in there, and not all of them are the latest versions, but the chips in the A3000 transplant board are the latest versions. So that's going to be okay. Now, maybe I will get this working again. I'll now that I'm back in the Amiga thing full time, maybe I'll work on this and try and bring this little guy back to life again. But we'll see. Right now, she's just going to be transplanted. Now, one thing you'll notice is there is no power supply. I have absolutely no idea where my original Amiga 3000 power supply is. In a box in my storage shed somewhere, probably. So temporarily what I'm going to do until I find it is I'm going to use that gigantic, absolute, atrocious beast that could, you know, I think it runs on nuclear fuel or something like that, and I'm just going to have it set behind my Amiga 3000 desktop, giving it power until I can locate the regular power supply or just build a new one. Now, I've given a tour of this beast before in a past episode. It's got a nice retina card down there, and you see this really awesome way that we have the Zorro cards held in place with styrofoam blocks. It does not get any more ghetto than that, my friends. It does not get any more ghetto. This little guy has 4 megabytes on board of zip RAM. I have 8 megabytes total of zip RAM, and when I was installing it in there about 2 months ago, a little ping and a little pin broke off on one of my zip RAM chips, and I cried for a week and a half. But I'll probably end up getting some more. Get this little guy up to 16 megabytes. Now, when I have all the cables moved out of the way, we have a much better view of what's going on. This is, again, the towerized case. These are the keyboard ports, mouse ports. See, we've got these funky extension cables that extend the keyboard and mouse ports way out to the outside of the case. You can plug something in, which is a clever idea, but it's just more cables, more mess. We've got our 4 megabytes of zip chips. Maybe I've got another 4 megabytes that's in good shape. I'll look through my inventory. This little guy's got 3.1 ROMs on it, and unlike my old motherboard, which used the ROM tower in these sockets and then had these for the newer ROMs, this one has no ROM tower ports. It just uses the real, I think they're 512K total ROMs. The chips are a bit newer on here. If we can get down here and take a look. Excuse me, cable. Yep, Fat Gary is a newer version, I believe. Let's see. Gary. Bonus points if you know where that's from. I've got our chip RAM down here. Everything's in fine shape, and our daughter board's in fine shape. Now, I've always had a sneaking suspicion that the problem with my old A3000 may have been my daughter board, because I seem to recall occasionally when I would move it and adjust it just a little bit, I would get different or better responses out of it. So, but it's not even worth hassling with, because this Amiga 3000 board is much newer than that one. So I'm going to stick with this one that is a known good working board, and I'm going to retire this monstrosity. Let me give you guys just a bit of free advice. When it comes to retro computers, nothing is as simple as you expect it to be. One would think, let's just unscrew some screws and we will remove the motherboard. No, about half of the screws just spin in place. So I'm thinking that we've got an issue on the back of the case where maybe there's some bolts or something holding it in, some nuts, and I have to grip onto the nuts to unscrew them. So I'm going to turn this little guy around. Oh, yeah, there's a plate. This is what the motherboard is attached to here, and these screws hold that plate in place. So I bet if I just take this plate off and slide the motherboard whole assembly out, then I'll be able to access the screws and nuts that are holding it in. So, yeah, well, just a little more work, no big deal. Taking that back plate off is going to work just fine. All of the little nuts here that hold the parallel serial RGB ports in place, all those need to be removed too. So just for full disclosure, I'm taking all of those off so I can slide the motherboard out. And out came our beautiful little motherboard. You can see what's holding on these little screws. The reason they were just spinning is there's just little nuts at the bottom. So no big deal at all. No big deal. As a matter of fact, I can just hand turn those and get all that stuff removed. So no issues from here on out. Knock on steel. And here is our bare Amiga 3000 desktop case and our two beautiful Amiga 3000 motherboards. Sorry, sweetheart, you're being retired because you don't boot anymore. There's our newer one that's going to go in. So another little discovery that I made is that the drive cage, or I'm sorry, the 03 slot adapter that was on the big honkin' tower does not fit in this Amiga 3000. So it must be a custom job. It's just too big, and it doesn't slide in there. No matter what I do, it doesn't slide in there. So that means that I really need to find my original 03 adapter from my Amiga 3000, and it is probably sitting right next to my Amiga 3000 power supply. Now I'm going to go ahead and power it up because I don't particularly need that in there unless I have my Zero cards in there. So I'm going to try it out without it, and we'll see what happens. Now, seriously, look at that beast of a power supply. Oh my goodness. I think that was the original power supply for the ENIAC computer back in the 50s. But it'll do the job until I find my real A3000 power supply. Right now, I just want to see if we can get a Kickstart logo on here. So I've got it hooked up to an old piece of garbage VGA monitor. Let me make sure my 31 kilohertz is enabled. Now, can I power it on without electrocuting myself? We've given the Amiga power, and what are we going to get? What result are we going to get? Got a green light on there. Nothing yet. Okay, let's see what we got here. Well, how about that? I had the 03 card. It was just up just a little bit, maybe an eighth of an inch. And I just slotted it down a little tighter, repowered it back up, and look at that. We have our 3.1 ROM boot disk. I think we're going to have a perfectly good working Amiga 3000 here in a few minutes. I'm going to try and pretty it up now and put a hard drive in there. So, I've run into an interesting conundrum. The Amiga 3000 boots great. You can ignore the distortion on the screen. That's just because it's a broken LCD monitor. I just use it for testing. So it boots up great. It recognizes my Retina card just fine. And I've also got my Thylacine USB card in there. But the issue is the drive tray that holds the hard drive, the power supply, and the floppy drive. I cannot find it to save my soul. I've torn apart my storage, found 5 boxes of Amiga goodies, which gives me all kinds of stuff to do retrocasts on. Found a bunch of things that I'd been looking for a year or two and couldn't find. Found those, including all my Commodore 64 discs and my Commodore and Amiga magazines I've been looking for. So it was not fruitless, but I cannot find the drive tray. May have to jury rig something. Fairly creative, so I'm sure I can come up with something that's going to hold my drives and my floppies in there. I mean, it's not too complicated of a tray. And at the same time, I can do something about this horrendously large power supply. But I am thrilled to pieces that I do have my Amiga 3000 working again in my desktop case. Now I just have to tweak it. So the quest to find the platform for the power supply, the hard drive, and the floppies has been fruitless so far. I've searched everywhere, can't find it. So this is what I've come up with. I've got a sheet of plexiglass, and I'm going to cut it out in the form of that metal piece. All right. not really worried about heat buildup because I'm not using any of the accelerators or anything, so I'm not really worried about that right now, and it's just temporary till I find mine. I know it's around somewhere. But I'm going to build a little platform that's going to screw into these little posts here. I'm just going to build a nice little platform that I can mount the hard drive on. I don't really need an internal floppy. I've got a couple externals that I can use, and I can't find my my A3000 internal floppy anyways. It's probably mounted on that piece, wherever that is. But one thing that I have done, because I'm a silly boy, is I was screwing in one of these mounts and it broke off. The screw part broke off right in there. So I'll have to figure out a way to get that out and then replace that little mount somehow. But again, just little challenges. So we're going to see how it goes after I cut this plexiglass. Okay, so here's the final product with a sheet of plexiglass. Now I've also built up these standoffs just a little bit to elevate things a little bit, and I was able to screw in the hard drive to the plexiglass. And again, I don't need the floppy because I can't find the one that fits in the front tray, so I'll just use one of my externals for the time being. Should be fine, but it gives the hard drive someplace to sit. There's plenty of space underneath here. This will be easy to remove when I find the actual drive tray, but I think it'll be I don't know, it's a fairly good compromise. So now, next project, reshape this little guy so it actually fits in the back. It's about, maybe a 1/16 or maybe an 1/8 of an inch too big to fit in there. So I think with some creative bending, I can get this little guy to work too. So, the case is on. No floppies, but I have my external floppy here that works just fine. Shows up as DF1. That'll work for now till I find my other parts. I have a nice 24-speed Panasonic CD-ROM. Works just great. Shows up fine. I've got my Thylacine USB, which is a fairly slow Zorro 2 USB interface, but it's also very reliable. It'll work with just about any flash drive and any device that I plug into it. It just does a little slowly. Screen comes up just fine. That's a nice Retina display. I've got it at a 16-bit display. I will not keep this monitor with the broken LCD. Keyboard, I need to clean it up. The enter key doesn't respond very well, and a couple other keys are sticky. I have to take it apart, give it a good cleaning, but they all function. And I would say that this was successful. No more A3000 tower that was just taking up space. Now a nice compact little unit that's just going to get better as I tweak it and touch it up and speed it up and swap out the noisy hard drive and upgrade the operating system. I'd say I'm happy with how it turned out. And so, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. But for now, this is Doug from 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out.